get into it. First, we're going to talk a little bit about me, just so you know more about me. I grew up homeschooled in a very science-forward family. So for me, that meant I got to do deep dives on whatever I found interesting on top of my normal coursework. That often resulted in me listening in on my older sister's science classes. So I've always been a science nerd. I graduated high school in 2015. During high school, I took plant biology classes at the local junior college, and I also worked in a greenhouse there. And then in 2019, I graduated with my bachelor's of science in horticulture. You can see the greenhouse didn't go away. It's getting bigger. And then smash cut to 2024. I am a doctoral student in the Janssen Laboratory working on phylogenetics and metabolite evolution. So my love of science has spanned my whole life, and it's a big part of who I am. All right, let's get to it. So there are over 1,000 varieties of banana. These range from the Cavendish, which we all know and love. If you think of a generic banana, that's probably a Cavendish. These are known as dessert bananas. Gros Michel is also a dessert banana, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. And then we have the second classification of bananas, the cooking bananas. These include things like plantains, which are often seen fried. So we have desserts and cooking. All of these bananas are from the same family, Muscaceae. So the Cavendish banana makes up about 47% of global production, according to the FAO. It is by far the banana species we utilize the most. That means there are 55 billion metric tons of Cavendish bananas grown yearly. To translate that down, that's about 121,254 billion pounds of bananas a year. Now, I kind of have trouble conceptualizing that, so I did a little math. It's about 27 billion Jeeps. That's a lot of Jeeps. So, the anatomy of bananas. Bananas are native to Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia is over here. It's a perennial herb that is tree-like, so it's not actually a tree. The main stem can reach 10 to 15 feet in diameter, so around, and then 10 to 30 feet in height. It is a big herb, and the plant can produce anywhere from 50 to 150 fruits at a time, but it only does one production cycle during its lifetime. This is what a banana flower looks like. So we can see that it has these purple bracts that kind of roll back, and then the yellow banana flowers themselves turn into fruits over time. So we call this an indeterminate panicle, if you will, because we have the old fruits at the back and the younger fruits still being set in the front. So the anatomy of bananas. Let's talk about wild bananas. Bananas were domesticated from a small number of wild species that were originally diploid. So diploid is where you have two copies of each gene-bearing chromosome, one from each parent. Di, two. So they also had seeds. Some of them could engage in parthenocarpy, which is where you have fruit set without pollination. And this image here is a more wild style of banana. You can see it has seeds in it, versus a generic supermarket banana, which is likely the Cavendish. I don't know, if you ask me, these seeds kind of make snack time hard. I don't think it'd be very pleasant. So, maybe a little, refresher for those of you that it's been a while since biology. This is more or less how diploid meiosis occurs. So we start with a diploid cell. It undergoes 2 rounds of meiosis, meiosis 1 and meiosis 2, and our end product is 4 haploid cells. So that's 4 cells, each with 1 copy of genes from each parent. And those would recombine to form a diploid cell again. Domesticated bananas. So bananas were most likely selected for small seed size over time so that we can eat them better. and they were grown for fruit production. So over time they became triploid, and as a result they became sterile. They couldn't have seeds anymore. Triploidy is often the result of non-disjunction in meiosis, and the plants that are triploid struggle with seed production, which for us is a benefit. You know, it's a feature, not a bug. So ploidy can also be changed by crossing plants with mismatched chromosomes. So for example, if you take a diploid, 2 copies, and you cross it with a tetraploid, 4 copies. So one of those gametes is going to have 1 copy, right? The other gamete is going to have 2 copies. So you're going to wind up with 3 gene copies in the new baby plant. And that is how we get triploidy if we want to do it on purpose. Non-disjunction. So we have our first meiotic division, and non-disjunction can happen either in the first division or the second division. And non-disjunction is where the chromosomes fail to split in the way that we expect. And it results in a trisomic zygote that recombines with, you know, most likely a cell that's correctly done meiosis, and we get 3 copies. So bananas are traditionally propagated with suckers asexually. They sprout off the rhizome. So this root system we call a rhizome, and the sucker will just sprout off, and that's a new baby plant. In production, a banana plant can have several suckers, so you can have multiple generations still kind of connected. Modern bananas are also propagated by tissue culture. This image is actually, this is mine. I was learning tissue culture in my undergraduate, so it was fun to pull that back up. So, the Cavendish is our banana of choice in the modern day. This was not always the case. It was not always the big star. And this image is of Gros Michel bananas being unloaded by dock workers. So it was the predecessor. So the Gros Michel, or the Big Mike banana, it was wildly popular until the 1960s. It was bruise resistant and a great choice for shipping across oceans. This was one of the first tropical crops that the US consistently got its hands on. And because of that, people were obsessed. We had banana candy. We had songs about banana. We so many things. It was known to taste much sweeter than our current Cavendish and a little bit more creamy. It was so popular that it inspired some familiar modern day flavors, the banana candy flavor. This image is of a scientist in 1930 testing flavor-giving contents of fruits using a vacuum distillery. One of the flavor-giving contents that they found is isoamyl acetate, and it's the main compound in that synthetic banana flavoring that you either love or really don't like. So the demise, we had the boom of the banana, it's time for the bust. By the 1960s, Fusarium wilt, which is a fungus, caused an epidemic that resulted in the collapse of the Gros Michel and the banana industry as it was known. Dun, dun, dun. Just a refresher, epidemic is a disease that moves through a population, but not internationally. It's not globally like everywhere. It's just within a population or a set of populations. A little bit of timeline work. Come on. So the late 1800s, we have railway projects in Central America facilitating industrial banana production of the Gros Michel banana. Bananas were a big money industry. Everyone wanted them. They were wildly popular, and so there was major infrastructure put in the areas it was produced in. By 1876, we have a wilt disease affecting bananas in Australia. But that's all the way over in Australia. We're in, North America. We're fine, right? Right? By 1890, the same disease is observed in the Gros Michel plantations of Costa Rica and Panama. Oh no, that's getting closer. By 1900s, we have some of the worst plant epidemics in agricultural history. This solidifies the nickname the Panama disease because it affected Panama and Costa Rica, which is our major production area for bananas in the 60s. By 1910, the pathogen is finally identified. This is Fusarium oxysporum. It's a wilt and a fungus. And by the 1960s, the epidemic reaches a tipping point, and the production of the Gros Michel collapses. The banana industry collapses as we knew it. A map for some, orientation. So it originated over here in Australia, and then it wound up in Panama and Costa Rica. I'm guessing based on trade routes. But yes. Fusarium wilt, a fungus among us.
Fungus among us.
A fungus among us. So this is a soil-borne fungus, and there's no current treatment for it in plants besides prevention. So just take a break from me talking to you. I want you to be in the mind of an agriculturalist. You are a farmer, and you are producing a crop of bananas in the 1960s, and you're surrounded by these stories of people losing their crops. What do? How do you prevent it from taking out your livelihood? All right, does anyone have any ideas?
Take out the other farmers.
Only one will live. Yeah. Put it in a greenhouse. That's a very interesting idea. So isolation.
Or put some kind of thing around it.
Right. More isolation.
You try to mess with the genetics of the current banana and try to make it fungi proof.
You're getting way ahead of me, yeah. Yeah, but in the 1960s, we weren't quite there yet. We didn't know that much about genetics. Okay, anyone else?
At this time, did we know that it was a soil-borne fungus?
We did.
Oh, then just change the soil?
Change the soil. I mean, on a small scale, yes. But if you have 10 fields, each about 3 acres, that's a big undertaking.
Didn't they spray for antifungal spray? Didn't they spray?
Yeah, you could use a fungicide maybe. Maybe, but soil-borne fungi can be hard to get ahead of in that respect. All right. Different banana. We'll get there. Okay, so management for Fusarium wilt. Current management includes finding disease-free sources of plants. You want to make sure the plants you plant aren't already infected. You want to prevent the spread by sterilizing tools between fields. It's kind of isolation, right? You want to make sure that if one field gets sick, you haven't already spread it to your other fields. And soil solarization. Has anyone heard of that before? A little bit? Cool. Yeah. So, solarization. They're not solar panels. It's using a plastic tarp to heat the soil with the greenhouse effect. So we take a big roll of plastic and we lay it across the field and we stake it down. And what that does is it creates a little greenhouse, a little layer of air between the plastic and the dirt. And the greenhouse effect, if you will remember, is where we have wavelengths from the sun trapped by this material in a greenhouse. Sometimes it's glass, sometimes it's, polyvinyl. And so those waves bounce around a lot and they become really, really hot. And that heat is sterilizing the soil and killing pathogens. That's what we call diseases. So fungus and bacteria will get killed off with this. And that's useful in this case because it's a fungus that we're working with.
How long do you have to solarize it?
Ooh, I would say a couple of weeks, but I'm betting it changes based on what you're trying to kill. So the world moved on, what the world is good at doing. The Cavendish bananas took the stage in place of the Gros Michel. They'd been growing in botanical gardens, both in the United Kingdom and in a collection in Honduras. This banana is closely tied with the Cavendish family. That's where the name comes from. It's a family during that time period. It was originally kept as like a curiosity, but we then realized that Cavendish are resistant to this strain of Fusarium wilt. It's resistant. So we have our next star, and this has served us very well up until the present day. So what went wrong? Gros Michel bananas are all clones of each other. They form what we call a monoculture. Monoculture being growing only one crop at a time. This is often the same plant genetically. So I want you to come up with some pros and cons for monoculture. Why would this be a good thing? Why would it be useful? And why would it be a bad thing? What are our risks? Standardization, yes. They're all the same height. They all have the same needs. We can get really into it. Yeah. Anyone else? Go for it.
There's no mutation, so no risk tolerance.
No risk tolerance. That's a negative, right? Because if one plant gets sick, they are all genetically identical. They are all going to get sick in exactly the same way. That's no good. All right. So let's look at what I had. You can maximize the field to suit the one crop you are growing. The crops are all similar heights. Standardization, like we were saying, mechanizing the harvest way easier. You can use a machine. You don't have to do it by hand and cater to different heights of plants. And it's simpler to manage one crop at a time. You only have one set of demands to worry about. But on the negative side, if one crop is susceptible, they're all susceptible and they will all get sick in the same way. The soil will get degraded unless you're rotating your crops out. Plants all have different nutrition needs that they pull from the soil. And if you aren't giving the soil variety, it'll get what we call nutritionally poor. That's a problem. It also requires more water. Lots of polyculture, which is where you have multiple different kinds of plants, include a ground cover, which means that you are retaining more water in your field. You have decreased your biodiversity. So your local insect life, your small animals, really everything, kind of misses out from that missed opportunity of having biodiversity. And you have a higher risk of harvest loss. This goes back to our first one, which is if something goes wrong, they will be affected in identical ways. So monoculture versus polyculture. By show of hands, who of us think that this is a monoculture? One person? Oh, you guys are hard to trick. Okay. Is this a monoculture?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. So this is a polyculture. And you can see we have many different types of plants, different species of plants, different heights of plants. It looks a little messier, but ecologically, it's a lot friendlier. So, an underdog is returning. The Gros Michel banana is resurfacing after being on the brink of extinction. We thought it was practically gone. A few growers are beginning to offer them again at a very small scale. They are still hard to grow at large scale because Fusarium is soil-borne, and that means that it's virtually everywhere. Our yesteryear banana is a little bit less yester than we'd originally thought. But wait, there is in fact more. So the Cavendish, our current banana, is often currently grown as a monoculture, and often are all clones of each other. So that pro-con list that we made, it applies here as well. Fusarium wilt has done what diseases do, and it's mutated. Some of the strains are now infecting Cavendish. Oh no. And recent studies are trying to find the next replacement banana. That's the go-to move if you're doing monoculture. You have to find the next it plant that you can monoculture and use for production. Scientists are considering this less of an if and more of a when in terms of the next collapse of bananas. This is not the only crop that experiences this, and it's actually a whole career range to find the next plants for things that are starting to have problems in terms of disease management. All right, well, thank you for listening. Do you all have any questions? I think we have a mic that's gonna happen.
Yeah, just flag me down.
Yeah, the mic is going back there.
When do you think the banana will become a different species? Like when will we find the next species? When do we expect to?
Okay, so the question was, when will we find the next species? We have been working on this for a while now. Don't quote me, but at least 10 years, maybe 15 or 20 years, we've been working on this project. We're always working on this project. So I don't know, really. It could be soon. It could be not soon. Sorry, that's not much of an answer, but.
Alright, go. Oh, yeah. Can you see if it works? Can you hold it yeah, just up this way? It should be on. not on.
I don't know.
That was, oh, okay.
Here, you want to just use mine?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll just go to back and forth. Yeah. Sorry, you get to work out.
All right.
Oh, sorry about that.
Why does that always happen every time someone's like,
Well, my question.
Okay, you guys are just going to be loud. Sorry.
That's all good. Okay. Could you list the pros and cons of because you saw pros and cons of monoculture, but could you list the pros and cons of polyculture?
Ooh, polyculture is more expensive.
Oh.
You have different harvest schedules, you have different nutritional needs, you have different machinery needs, different harvest schedules, different heights, different crop types, which means that your cost of labor is just higher. Other negatives. That's really the main one. It's expensive. And when you're talking industry, expense is a limiting factor. It limits your ability to be competitive.
What about the pros?
The pros of polyculture?
Yeah.
It's going to be on the cons of monoculture, or the pros of polyculture. So better ecological friendliness, your insect life is going to be better, just in general. You're going to not run the risk of losing your whole cash crop if something kills part of your crop. So on and so forth. All right.
Why do bananas turn green to yellow?
Why do they turn green to yellow? That's fun. That's very fun. Okay, so that kind of goes back to why are leaves green? Do you know?
I know this. There is a special its nutrients is stored in its leaves,
Kind of.
and when the sun hits it, it like makes the but when it becomes winter, it drains all that energy out of the leaves to like put it in the trunk to store it for winter,
Yeah, more or less.
and then it then the leaves change colors.
The leaves change colors because they're dying. Yes, but you were there before. You wandered off, but you were good. Photosynthesis, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of fruit sets mimic the chemical compounds of the leaves originally because the tree's used to photosynthesizing, and then as the fruit ripens, that organ doesn't need to photosynthesize, and so the green will degrade and you'll see the colors under it. In this case, it's yellow. Often depending on the fruit, that's why we have like red fruits and yellow fruits, and blueberries are kind of purple, but you get it. They're often different colors to be attractive to animals, because if they get eaten, they will get moved and you won't drop and grow right under a parent plant. So you'll get more sunlight, more room, more resources. So it's kind of a combo. All right, we have a hand way in the back.
Which banana species do you think tastes the best?
Ooh, I don't actually know. I do like a kind of green Cavendish. I'm in the green part of the banana club. Everyone's always like green, good, or yellow, good. I'm on the green side. In the US, it can be kind of hard to find the different species because Cavendish is just what's sold. Yes. Fusarium wilt. Yeah, it's the main thing that takes out bananas. That's why it's a big deal. Yes.
It was a long span when you were giving us that timeline that it took to destroy the crop, right?
It was quite a long
Like you said,
span.
from the 1800s all the way up to the 1960s.
Oh yeah, it was a while.
We probably don't have that much time, right?
Maybe, maybe not. It depends. These timelines can be hard to predict. They can be, but we've had the Cavendish for a surprising amount of time. So,
You mean from the 60s or
from the 60s
Well,
to now.
big time? Big time,
Yeah,
right?
scientists call that a bit of an arms race against plant diseases.
Okay.
All right, yes.
Yeah, with recent genetic technology like mapping genomes and CRISPR,
Yeah.
why can't you just design the perfect banana?
Well, you say mapping genomes like it didn't take me 5 years to learn how to do that.
Well, I'm sure they've mapped the genome of a banana plant, and they have CRISPR technology, and they can just design the perfect banana.
Right, and I'm sure there are scientists working on that. There's massive call for that need. And so we're working on it, but research is always limited by time. It's an unfortunate reality. Research takes time. And so it's not an impossibility that we'll get a, super banana alteration on the market at some point. But there's never one solution to these kinds of problems. Because diseases only ever continue to mutate. It's not like it's new and scary. Diseases have always mutated. It's their thing. But we'll have to keep working on it. It's not going to be a one and done.
It's like COVID.
Yes.
So it sounds like we had giant monocultures of bananas,
Mhm.
they died,
Mm.
and now we made new monocultures of bananas, and they're dying again, and now like maybe we'll make a third, or like is this just a cat and mouse game, or like are we learning something new about?
It's
like,
a cat and mouse game right now.
Landscapes? Like, is there a different path?
Right, and this is a thing that a lot of ecologists and geneticists, that's me, and scientists are being loud about, is because we're just doing a cycle. And unless we shift over to polyculture on a mass scale, we're going to be just doing the same cycle over and over again. It's part of why education like this is so important. But, until it gets to the big industry stuff, it's hard to see a real change. Okay. Oh, someone from this side.
Yeah, policy question. So who would you want to influence with this education? Like whose mind needs to be changed?
Whose mind? You mean like corporation?
I'm asking you, like to fix this problem, whose mind do you want to change?
Like senators or corporations?
Yeah, both. All of the above. I'm a scientist. We don't pick lanes. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's about education, right? If the people in charge aren't educated on a topic, they cannot make informed decisions. And that's deeply important. So, pro-education. Yes?
How many different species of bananas do you think we have in like the field?
Do we have in where?
Like how many do you think we have in this field?
Ooh, see, because banana is a food crop, it gets a ton of attention. I know the current number is 1,000 plus. That always leaves a little wiggle room for new hybrids. So. Oh, yes. I think I got most of that, kind of far.
I can relate. The question is, when the pathogen moved from Australia, do we know how it affected the other species that are in Southeast Asia?
I mean, it probably killed them. Deeply crippled them. One of the two. Having a resistance to Fusarium is kind of novel. That's why the Cavendish got so much attention. Yes?
So I have a banana of my own. So what would you say are what are the symptoms of Fusarium?
Ooh, what are the symptoms of a wilt? That's a fun question. I haven't done plant pathology in a long time. This is fun. Okay, you have a banana plant? That's cool. So Fusarium wilt. It's gonna kind of look the same as overwatering, where your leaves are gonna get really, really sad looking, really droopy, especially the new leaves. I think it affects new tissue first, if I remember correctly. New leaves droopy, and then it'll drop off, and it'll have trouble putting on new leaves. And over time, that'll start to really weaken the plant. But depending on the species of banana you have, it may not be a huge concern. And if it's just a crop of one, I wouldn't be overwhelmingly concerned. It's mostly the big fields that have mass production that get hit the worst. Yes?
I've seen some cases, but not for bananas, but coconut plants.
Yeah.
That they have died, a bunch of them, the same species. Do you know if that's something that's going on?
Oh no.
If coconut plants are dying in mass,
Cocoa fruit.
I'm betting it's another disease sweeping through. This happens all the time.
They call it yellowing or something.
Yellowing. Like chlorosis or...
No, I'm asking if that is a thing that is going on.
It's always a thing that's going on. If you're in an agricultural industry, disease management is part of the gig. And these kinds of diseases sweep through periodically. The banana famine of the 60s was huge because we weren't as prepared for it. And now it's taught as part of the curricula, part of the industry. Okay, yes.
What drove the selection of the Cavendish as the more recent monoculture over other species?
Why is the Cavendish selected more over other species currently?
Like, what drove the transition from the previous sort of dominant species to this one?
Why did they pick the Cavendish?
It was disease resistant at the time.
Like, not for taste, not for anything else?
It also shipped fairly nicely. It's a little bit more bruisey than the Gros Michel, so you can't be as rough on it. It needs a little more padding. And its ripening time, I believe, is a little bit slower. And so you have time to ship across oceans because that takes a while. Those are the main reasons. Yes? Was there a previous banana? Both yes and no. Because this kind of overlays with when we were industrializing as a whole, this was one of the first times that we saw how devastating it can really be. But on small farms and plantations and setups, I'm sure diseases are always there. So I'm sure there were farmers that experienced this on a much smaller scale. However, when you industrialize an industry, that's where you really see the massive drop that can happen. All right. Anyone else? How are we on time? Yes.
So like pathogens that like severely cripple or kill their like host tend to like we don't like that.
Generally not. No.
Yeah. Is it after the banana, and does the wilt like after? It sounds like it like kills it, or does it just like functionally cut off the production?
It'll kill it.
Oh, so it will kill.
It'll kill. So wilts affect the leaves, and if a plant can't sustain leaves for any extended amount of time, it cannot do photosynthesis. So it can't get new sugars into its system, and it'll starve. So, yes.
How did the wilts like get from all the way in Australia, halfway across the world, to America?
Mm-hmm. The world was experimenting with a lot of trade routes, so shipping, at that point in time. And we hadn't yet realized that we maybe need to do a little bit of disease management inspection. If y'all have ever traveled out of the country and you come back in and you have to do customs, which is a pain, but you do it, and they ask you, are you carrying any plant material? That's why they ask that question. Because the diseases can hop, and even if the plant is not showing symptoms yet, it can be carrying it. To move plants internationally these days, there is a lot of paperwork and a lot of tests and a lot of, hoops to jump through. Okay. Anyone else? Cool. I think I questioned out the crowd.
Well, this is great. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Sarah. That was a wonderful talk.
Thank you guys for listening.
I just wanted to let you all know all of the information for this semester is up on our socials. It will be on scienceunderthestars.com. It's on the website. I think you should just put that. .org. There you go. And we also have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And if you want them right to your inbox, please sign up to our mailing list so you find out about all of the talks this semester.
Our next talk will be October 10th, and it's going to be about flower adaptations. Okay? Awesome. Thanks for everyone for coming.
Hello. Hi.
I love your questions. Impressive.
Give your bananas, Joseph.